Good evening. My name is Alfred Hitchcock. The title of our podcast is A Few Words with Eric Santamaria. The subject, a gentleman named Rodney McGuffin. Oh, pardon me, Rodney Leconte, who, as a young boy, was influenced by my work. What a psycho. If you are listening to this podcast in your car, headed north by northwest, keep your eyes on the road. Don't look in the rear window. Ladies and gentlemen, this podcast is for the birds.
That's punny. Hi, it's your tortured soul brother, Eric Santamaria. And as Hitch mentioned, I have a few words this week with Rodney Leconte. He's one of my best friends, and we talk about a bunch of things this week. When I sat down to record with Rodney, it was a blast. The time just flew by, and we had so much fun. We talk about how we got into pro wrestling, videography, films, our misadventures in high school, and grappling, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, all that sort of stuff, and how that led to a very serious injury. But before we dive into that, I just wanted to say how you'll get to know Rodney better. I hope you got to know me better, and you will get to know me better as this show goes on. But last week specifically, I tried being very candid and open about the events in my life that led from the Wrestling Roundtable to this podcast. And the response has been so overwhelming and touching. All of you sending messages on Twitter at A Few Words with ES, on SoundCloud, Facebook, and even through email, afwpod@gmail.com. All of the outlets on social media has just been so touching. The outpouring of positive energy has touched my heart. I always thought that if I was ever in a situation where I'm making an acceptance speech, let's say like the Oscars or something like that, you imagine yourself up there, that I would remember 3 F's: family, friends, and fans. And those groups of people, you can't get anything done without them, really. And I've gotten messages from so many Roundtable fans and people from as far away as France and Austria, and I can barely put into words how much that means to me. So I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate all of your support. And again, if you support this show, if you like this show, there are so many ideas I have for this show, and the potential is almost limitless. We can do so many different things with this show, and I want more of your feedback. So please keep sending that in. Please give us a share, a like, give us a good review on iTunes. And so many of you did that already last week, unasked. So many of you took the initiative, in fact, to just post that on Twitter and Facebook and wherever, trying to get people to listen to it just because you liked it so much. And I just wanted to let you know again how much I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. That means a lot. However, I did want to say one other thing before we get started on our sit down here with The Rod. I mentioned before how I sat down to record with Rodney. Now, again, I appreciate all the help that everyone gave me to get to this point and get the podcast launched. But I also wanted to emphasize that this isn't one of these mainstream podcasts that has a corporation behind it and a staff. You hear all the time that someone is an engineer or a producer or anything like that. That is not the case here. I sat down to record it. I hit the button. I got the equipment. I edited it. I uploaded it. And I spread it around. It's all me, self-made. And I just wanted to let you know that, because that just makes your words of encouragement and support mean all the more. I feed off of your positive energy, and I appreciate it. And along those lines, another thing that I did, as I mentioned last week, I've been playing around with audio all my life. As a kid, I listened to vinyl, and I would take cassette recorders and stereos and microphones, and I would record stuff off TV, movies, especially wrestling, and radio, and play around with the audio, even just recording my family in the house, in the car. I'd play around with the pitch, I'd make edits, and then, of course, as computers became more commonplace, I used sound recorder and other digital means to make goofy things over the course of my life. And I still have a lot of that. So I had to take all that audio, the cassettes, the VHS, and all that sort of media, and I've digitized all of it, so it's at my disposal again. I'm an archivist. I collect things. I don't want to throw anything away, and that's because it all leads to future smiles later on. Oh my God, you still have that? Well, now I'm going to share it with you too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to splice in some of that. You'll hear goofy stuff like,
Dr. Hawaiian Punchinello has just opened a head to remove the brain.
And
I am Baxter Saltman. I am a guy and a fly.
and so on and so forth as I grew up, just because I think it's funny, just to spice things up a little bit. So going forward, you hear some goofy noise or some kid sounding like a maniac. That's what that is. That's me and my friends too. So that might help flesh out some of this acoustic experience you're going to have in this personal journal. So without further ado, let's have a few words with Rod Leconte.
Hi, and welcome to Home Entertainment Connections with Rodney Leconte. I'm Rodney Leconte. Hi.
Hey, yo, Rod.
Hey, yo, Eric.
It's good to see you. We don't see each
Always.
other enough.
I know, and every time we see each other, it's always like a gathering or something. So it's the first time in a while, I guess since I ran into you randomly in the city, that we get some one-on-one time.
Well, most people listening to this are probably Roundtable fans, at least to start. Hope to build audience from there.
Right.
But they know you from the Wrestling Roundtable. I know you a lot longer than that, over half our lives now, because we met in high school. Tell us about the day we
98.
met, because I remember that pretty well.
Yeah, so it's 98, right? First year of junior year of high school. And yeah, we were in video class, FPAC together. So for those of you who don't really know what FPAC is, it stands for Fine Performing Arts. We were in a specially selected video program. We were one out of 12 students selected in the whole district.
And FPAC was video, acting,
Dance.
or theater, writing, right?
Yeah, writing, dance. They had dance people
Right.
too. Mm-hmm. So this is a time when wrestling was hot. Austin was hot. Triple H, The Rock was just starting to get hot. It was there. It wasn't 99 peak, but it was there.
Yeah, but for us wrestling fans, when we grew up as wrestling fans, WWF, WCW, ECW, this was a hot time.
To me, this is the hottest year ECW was. So Eric walks in, and he has a DX shirt.
Was it I thought it was NWO.
No, you had a DX shirt.
Okay.
At least the first day I saw you had a DX shirt. And I remember thinking, oh, God, here's this guy who probably just started watching wrestling. And
Well,
has a DX
what were
shirt.
you wearing?
The first day we acknowledged each other, I think I was wearing a Living Dangerously shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I went to the Living Dangerously pay-per-view in Asbury Park that year. We looked over to each other and you held up the triple threat sign, and I was like, all right, this guy knows his ECW, which is funny because it's kind of foreshadowing how we're gonna form the triple threat.
Right. And what we called ourselves the triple threat? It was you, me, and
Jehoda.
Mike Jehoda. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I would have done without you guys in that class.
We would have.
Can you imagine that? If only one of us was in that class and not the other two?
I would have been sitting in a corner by myself.
Oh man, we
Well-
had to join the others.
Right. That's what we called everybody else in class, the others. But how'd you start watching wrestling? How'd you become a fan?
I would say probably late 80s. I started watching it. I remember some stuff here and there, like the famous Saturday Night Main Event when Macho turned on Hulk. I remember watching that with my family, and before my grandma moved in, she lived in Brooklyn, and when I get dropped off at her house, we would watch wrestling, whether it's Superstars or Challenge. So probably I would say 89, 90 is when I really started watching it like religiously, like every week. And Royal Rumble 91 was the first pay-per-view that I ordered. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite pay-per-views because I think just from top to bottom, as a pay-per-view, as an event, like it was just fucking great. Yeah, after that, I was just hooked. I was just hooked on these bigger than life like superstars and just Hogan and the intense storyline with Macho and Ultimate Warrior at the time. Things back then just seemed very natural and like wrestling was just hot.
You mean it wasn't written by 10 people feeding everybody line for line?
No. Yeah, to me it was just great television. It was just great entertainment. Yeah, and then from then on I was hooked probably until about, I don't know, 2006, 7-ish, 8-ish.
Right before we started recording, you said something about how long it's been since we've been basically diehard fans.
Yeah. It was funny, too, because, this is when I was working in the city, and you and Lawrence would come over every Monday, which I missed that dearly.
Right.
Like, those days. But it's when we still lived, like, within, like, 20 minutes of each other.
I used to call that my weekly therapy session. And not for the wrestling, because that would put me in therapy.
Yeah.
But I mean, you and me and Lawrence getting together and seeing my friends every week. I knew I'd at least see you guys once a week, and we'd catch up, we'd have some laughs. That was what I really looked forward to it, not watching Randy Orton or whatever.
Yeah. No, it was, because, not like Raw was, like, hot. It wasn't as bad as it is now. But it was just something like in the background, and I think having those nights kind of sparked the Wrestling Roundtable.
Oh,
like,
they did.
Who knew that Donald Trump, we could all thank Donald Trump for the Wrestling Roundtable.
You're welcome, losers. You were watching the WWF growing up.
Yeah.
Probably in some WCW, you were a Sting fan, I think.
Yeah, I would watch it Saturday mornings, because I still remember like Sting's theme song, like, dun, dun, dun. I had like WCW figures too. Like I knew like the Four Horsemen and Flair. I didn't watch it as much. I saw a few events. I remember watching some Halloween Havocs. Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal, I think was one of like the first WCW pay-per-views that I watched back then.
Well, you watched with your friend Brian Coppola, who you grew up with in the neighborhood. And I'm very curious about this for two reasons. One, I think it's amazing how you, me, Lawrence, Chris Harris, etc., where we lived in central New Jersey, it was funny how our parents all met in New York City. They all moved to this area of New Jersey, had a similar amount of kids, and we all got together because the big connection at first was pro wrestling.
Yeah.
That's what brought us together. So it's interesting in that respect, but also, do you think your fanaticism for wrestling is what led you to the video class?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Absolutely. Just the celebrations of people winning and like the entrances, the huge crowd reactions, the video production too really led me to going into video production myself.
Or the production at all, really,
the production,
overall.
I loved the way they put together the promos. For some reason, one of the ones that really stand out, I really loved, it was building up to King of the Ring 94, and there was a video package promoting Lawler vs. Piper. And for some reason, like, the way they did the voiceovers with Piper and Lawler, like, even though it wasn't like a huge match, that promo was like, wow, like this video production is just fucking awesome. The WrestleMania 10 one really stands out to me too. I really liked that. Yeah, there were just a lot. Like the music videos, like back then they would have music videos promoting the wrestlers.
Back then.
Yeah, respect and everything else. It was just really just fit into the whole package of wrestling.
The way I always would describe it back when I was into it is wrestling brings together almost every element of the performing arts.
Yeah.
You've got music from Jim Johnston. You've got stage production. You've got, and this is all aside from the live athletic performance, the physical ballet that goes on in the squared circle.
Yeah.
This is video production. This is announcing, acting in some sense, or a big sense.
Like the vignettes with the Jake the Snake and Ultimate Warrior storyline. Like back then, I thought like those were like really cool, really cool the way they did that, and it was just kind of like something different than when you saw back then.
And it really appeals to creative kids like us.
Yeah.
Because there's so much you can play around with and create on your own. I mean, even with the action figures, you'd make up your own matches and storylines. It was a really fertile playground for these seeds to plant in our head and grow.
Yeah, and like I appreciated it even before I knew I was gonna start making movies and like go into video production. Like I loved the video before I knew that like I would love video.
Well, you just mentioned video. When you got into the video program at Howell, where did you see yourself going from there?
Going into film, like I saw myself being a film director. I saw that probably since 8th grade, freshman year of high school. You know, because growing up, like, I always thought, like, I was going to be in the NBA and blah, blah, blah. Like, I played basketball, you know, like, growing up.
What didn't you play? You played everything. Tennis and wrestling and basketball.
It's funny, though. The one thing I kind of regret is, like, not playing football. Because, like, you know, I'm into it.
Because you wanted concussions and
brain
damage right now.
I was like, oh, man, like, why the fuck did I didn't do football? But I really, like, back then I was like a lot scrawnier than I am now. So
I remember like when we first met, you were very thin.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, you just blew up.
It wasn't probably until college that I started like putting on like a good size.
Right.
I found the weight room. But yeah, like sometimes I wish like I was like the size I am now, like during wrestling. But I guess that's why, you know, I do jiu-jitsu to kind of make up for it.
At the time, I remember when I met you, your favorite movie was Scream.
Yeah.
Is it still your favorite? The best ever?
It's still up there. It's funny, too, because, like, it's... So sometimes I go to watch it, but I've seen it so many times, and it's one of those movies where it's hard not to want to say every word that happens on screen.
You know every beat and every...
Pretty much, yeah. That was a game changer. You know, for me back then.
What appealed to you about it so much?
It wasn't your typical horror movie,
right.
Because I wasn't too big into horror movies back then. I maybe saw one of the Friday the 13th. I saw one Nightmare on Elm Street.
Halloween,
not even. I knew of Halloween, but I don't think I even watched any of them. I think the only movies I watched were the Child's Play movies. But Scream was just like totally different. It was the first movie that referenced other movies. And it kind of had this, like, teenage edge about him. But it was still gory. It was still a great storyline. It sparked a whole other genre of movies. It was a mystery.
Well, plus young Nev Campbell, young Rose McGowan.
Oh, yeah.
But I love when it's described as a satire or a parody, which it is, but...
It still had this tone of, like, the serious mystery.
It totally fit into the genre. But it's just funny because then there's Scary Movie... 2, 3, 4, but like those are parody movies too. That's not what Scream was at all.
No, not at all. But
and the parody became parodied.
Exactly. But yeah, like after that, Urban Legend, and I Know You Did Last Summer, and like all these movies right after this hot group of like young actors and like being utilized in these movies, I think really complemented the genres back then.
What about the Hitchcock Theater?
The Hitchcock Theater, yeah. Before that, like I was into video. Me and Brian, you know, what we would do for fun, kind of like make our own like WWF, like using video games. And then we started like using my dad's video camera to broadcast ourselves and like hype up the matches a little bit, kind of be like the on-screen like Todd Pettingills and stuff. When I went to the Alfred Hitchcock Theater in Florida, there were very few life-changing moments in my life, and I could see that being the biggest.
The second was meeting me, of course.
Yes, of course. Because that's what really like made me want to do movies. Mm-hmm. I didn't even want to go before. Like my mom was like made us go, and I wanted to do like other shit.
At Universal Studios?
Universal Studios. So we went to the Hitchcock Theater in Florida. I think it's like a small tour, and then you go in the theater, and they have like a kind of like a 3D short version of like the birds and stuff. That was cool. And then they had like almost a live production of the famous shower scene in Psycho, and showing all the camera work. And from there, I was just in awe, infatuated. I was like, this is fucking cool. It was like, I guess one of my first moments of seeing like a behind the scenes work of like how like a scene is made.
Seeing how it all comes together.
Seeing how it all come together, see how it was shot, like seeing how the lighting affects everything and all the shots and how all the camera angles kind of played out in front of you, and like how the shots kind of told the story within themselves. I'm like a very visual person, but I think that moment made me realize like exactly how visual I could be. For some reason, it really just like hit deep with me.
You should be into silent films. It's all visual.
Oh, yeah.
I got into movies because I was just fanatical about a lot of them, watching the stories. And it's funny because my dad, when he was a kid in Uruguay, well, teenager or whatever, he worked at a movie theater painting on the window and stuff like that. And he'd always been into movies. He'd always tell me, this was the last movie I saw before I moved to this country. This was the first one I saw when I moved to this country. I saw this one. And he would watch things that were making of or behind the scenes type stuff with me. But I don't think he'd really seek it out on his own per se.
Right.
But I'm the complete opposite of that. I want to get down to the origin of things, the nitty gritty. I want to know where everything comes from. And I'm so spoiled now. The first DVD I ever got, I think this was in 2001 or 2002, was the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes.
Oh,
and
nice.
even though as derided as that movie is, or how much people rip
Is that
on.
the one that we saw?
Oh yeah, we saw that.
With Mark Wahlberg, right?
Oh yeah, we saw that. That's
what I beat you in air hockey.
Yeah. But stop! Don't lie on my podcast. See, you beat Rodney at air hockey, and 15 years later, he's still upset about it. But that was an amazing DVD. For as much hate as that movie gets, the DVD blew me away. 2-disc set, tons of making of, even the HBO one, all the TV commercials, commentary track, animated menus. Going from VHS to that was a mind blower.
Oh, VHS.
So yeah, every time I get a DVD that's bare bones and it doesn't have a making of and all this other stuff, I'm very upset.
I mean, that's why everyone's like, people still like give me shit about having so many DVDs and like, oh, but it's on demand. But I'm like, what if I want to watch commentary?
Right.
Like, how do you watch the behind the scenes or the featurette and everything like that? Like, there were a few times where you would tell me, oh, you should listen to this commentary and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I remember being at Nickelodeon and like, you know, while I was working, like bringing in DVDs and just listening to the commentary and stuff.
I would do that at Ring of Honor too,
Yeah.
until Ross yelled at me one day. 'Cause, I can't edit this stupid B show from Charleston, West Virginia, or wherever the hell, because I'm listening to a movie DVD commentary track while I'm doing it. Come on. Still bitter about that, Ross. But
Oh, man.
now with the Blu-ray, I have to put it on. Well, actually, I just got an external Blu-ray for my MacBook, so now I can play Blu-ray on my MacBook too, instead of having.
That's bullshit how like these like laptops now like don't have like DVD drives.
Oh, this MacBook I got a year ago. No disk drive. And I knew that was coming because I talked to some people who edited in the years between getting the first MacBook for the Roundtable and this one.
Yeah.
Not having a disk drive slot, unacceptable.
It really is. And like for this like wedding that I was doing, I was like trying to find larger size. I think like 8 gig blank DVDs. I had to fucking order it online.
Mm-hmm.
Like you think in New York City you'd be able to find it. I went to like 3 Best Buys, like a few Staples. Nobody had it.
Meanwhile,
Nobody had it. And I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
Meanwhile, I was in a Best Buy in New York recently, and they had a VHS cleaner. Believe it or not.
That's funny too, because like the VHS player, VCR that you gave me, we had to actually go to the Kmart in the city to get a VHS cleaner to get it to work.
Wow.
Yeah, they still got them.
Go to Amazon.
Still
Help,
got 'em.
Go through our Amazon store. That'll help me.
Yeah.
So we go into video class, and we're there for a couple years. Now, the first year, we also had English when I would go there, right? It was the English class?
We had English. Did we have acting?
That was the second year.
That was second year. Yeah, we did have English class.
In the English class, I was with Miss Ferrara.
Ferrara.
And Miss Ferrara looked like Leah Thompson. And Leah Thompson, ooh, she still looks good.
Yeah?
Yeah, she's like fine wine. But in Miss Ferrara's class, Mike Jehoda told me how you and he had been in classes before and everything. I think
I think we had like almost every class together.
Right.
At that point.
And
Yeah.
I don't think that any of my close friends, like you or Chris Harris or anybody that I was ever in class with, I hadn't not been separated from.
I wonder why. I wonder why.
And even when we were separated, I'd still turn around and goof off and like do the Big Show choke slam thing.
Oh my God. We should blame Norman Smiley for half the shit that we did.
Well, tell the audience what we did.
So if you guys don't know the Norman Smiley dance, pretty much it's like simulating fucking doggy style. Like you put your hand out front and then like pretend like you're smacking an ass. And anytime the teacher would turn around, me, Eric, and Mike were sitting in the back, all next to each other, and we'd stand up and fucking do this dance.
I like how you said NS, gender neutral. But let's go back to video class, because acting was a little later on. Do you have any memories of video class? Because I have a couple specific ones.
Jeez, I have a lot. It's hard for me to differentiate what we did senior year and junior year. One of my favorite things for junior year was my Get Down Tonight video and watching you come out and like dance disco. If you don't know, Eric is one hell of a disco dancer. The NSYNC and Backstreet Boy improv video, that it's just funny that like these things that we did like not on purpose end up being like Lagana's like favorite shit.
Yeah, Mr. Logano was our teacher. The word we always used was because he used it a lot. Inappropriate.
Yeah.
Everything was inappropriate. Meanwhile, we go back after we graduated because it was his last year with us, right?
I think the year after might have been his retirement.
Okay.
I don't remember, yeah.
But after he left, then all of a sudden, everyone could do whatever they want. Just to give you, for instance, we had a project, because would do interviews, instructionals.
With student interviews, we had instructionals, we had the video essay that we did.
We had to do a lot of different projects with narration and things like that.
Just learn the audio, and that was the first year when the Casablanca was introduced.
Yeah. He really wouldn't allow us to do anything, let's say, offensive, even though it really wasn't. It was like super PC.
Yeah, this is the first time in my life where I really had to deal with creative restriction. And as much as me and Lagana had a very love-hate, relationship, because before, obviously when you're making your own videos and stuff with Brian, like, you make whatever the fuck you want.
Right.
I was really excited going into it. I had high hopes. Like before this, sophomore year, I was in a visual communication class. To me, that was like my chance of like showing everyone like what I was about, because like, I've been using the camera since I was like 11, 12 years old, making movies. So here's a chance to like, finally, I guess, let the world see like who I'm really made of. The communications class was, pretty good. I think it was good preparation for the FPAC class because my teacher, I think it was Sorrentini, I don't know, but she was pretty hot. But her and Lagana were actually like the judges or whatever, the people interviewing the students. So I knew like I had a good chance, and Deadly Games actually is what got me into FPAC.
Well, what was Deadly Games?
Deadly Games is pretty much like my take on Scream. Like, it influenced me, like, that much when I was just like, I don't have to make something like this, I have to make this. Like, it just hit me that hard. It was almost like the Alfred Hitchcock theory.
I have to be Wes Craven.
Yeah. That's what really, like, made me, like, be more into horror movies. Because horror movies, it's not only about the script, but, like, just about, like, the visual way of how you could, like, affect people's emotion and making them feel
Tension,
a certain way. Yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of high hopes for FPAC. I won't say I was completely disappointed because obviously, like, you and Jehoda, and like there were some good people in the class,
right.
But I just wasn't used to having that restriction, and it took a while. Probably not until like mid-senior year to finally like play by the rules a little bit.
Well, here's the absurd levels that it would get to. We had to do a project in senior year with the acting class, and we would take acting class, but these were the straight up acting students.
Right.
And they would do a scene and we were to direct it. My script was with these two girls, and the scene was, I forget if it's from an old play or movie or whatever, but two secret lesbians. So of course I would get this one. And at the end, because they're all upset that they can't fully realize their love, they're hiding and in secret, and one of them can't take it anymore, walks off screen and you hear a gunshot. That's in the script that I was given. I didn't create this. And Mr. Logano wouldn't let me do it.
Which was funny because I did a similar project where there was a gunshot, and it was a project that he loved to the point where when we were recruiting other people in the high school for FPAC, that was the video that I was playing for these classes. And I remember he even played it for like all the acting students and dance students. I remember everyone's like clapping at the end, and Leconte's like, "Oh wait, there's more." And I was like, "Wow, he's promoting this. It's cool."
Well, that reminds me. Could you please explain for everybody the story?
What story, Eric?
You know which one. Walking out of acting class.
Oh God, this is my favorite story.
Oh, then go ahead and tell it, please. Let's get this on record.
You preface it. Go ahead, preface it.
Okay, well, we would take acting before our video class. So when we were done, we were walking out of the acting class, pretty much single file, to go right across the hall to our video class. Now, I just explained this scene that I was doing. One of the actresses in the scene, one of the students, is waiting outside the doorway. What was her name? Do you remember?
Alicia.
So it was Tova and Alicia. Alicia is standing outside the door. And walking in order was basically Mike Jehoda, Alex Powell, you, and then me. Now, there are a few moments where you'd almost think I was psychic. This is not being a negative Nancy. This shit actually happens to me. All these people talk about, oh, with my luck. No, this happens to me. And this happened many times in my school life, too. But here's an example. I pre-visualized in my head. I saw as it was unfolding. Because she was saying hi to everybody. Hi, Alex. Hi, Mike. Hi, Rodney. And I just knew that she wouldn't say anything to me. It was like she didn't have a phone because there were no cell phones back then. But she had something that she was looking down on, like a notebook or something. Like people were reading their phones now.
I remember she had her books with her, but I don't remember if she was looking down. She says hi to Alex, says hi to Mike, says hi to me, and Eric's behind me, and you just hear nothing. So the person who's directing her in this scene doesn't get acknowledged. So, of course, I find this fucking hilarious.
Now, keep in mind, when you turn around laughing, I had stopped in front of her, like, really? And you just died. I was so happy that you witnessed this. So you know that I'm not making this sort of stuff up.
Oh, I know. That's still, to this day, freaking, like, almost 20 years later, it's one of my favorite stories.
One of my favorites, also another practical precognition thing, was the Oprah sketch. Oh. Tell us about that.
So for Jehoda's interview, he decided that he was going to have me dress up as Oprah. And was I interviewing him, or was I interviewing you as Oprah?
I don't think it was me. You were definitely interviewing somebody as Oprah.
So I was interviewing... No, because Mike would be directing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was interviewing someone as Oprah, so I had to wear a wig and dress and everything. I'm just like, all right, whatever, like, you know, I'll do this, you know, like, I don't mind, like, you know, being funny or whatever. But that, like, I'm like, there's no way I'm fucking stepping out of the room, though.
Now, didn't I say beforehand that what if a fire alarm goes off?
And I just, like, chuckled. I'm like, yeah, right. So we're taping, and all of a sudden, and keep in mind, like, we, especially in video class, we barely had any fire drills. I could think of maybe 2.
Right.
And all of a sudden, middle production, fire drill. My eyes lit up. I was like, no fucking way, bro. No, man. And then we had to fucking go outside, and I'm sitting there in a wig and dress, and people coming up to me like, Rodney, like, what are you doing? And I'm like, don't ask, it's for video class.
This is one of the funniest things I've ever witnessed. I'm still laughing about it now.
Oh, man. I'm glad you guys find that funny.
Oh, there's many more, but let's move on a little bit. After Howell High School graduation, where'd you go from there?
I went to William Patterson University, which is funny because they sent me a rejection letter first and then accepted me like 2 weeks later. So I'm like, okay, make up your mind.
It's like a girl.
Yeah, right? I thought, like, you know, this is going to be it. Like, I'm really going to, like, excel in video and learn. Like, I was ready to, like, hit the ground running. Like, I knew what I had in my background. I was just, you know, ready to, like, do what I can for, like, my career because I was one of the people that, like, actually knew what they wanted to do going into college. A lot of people go into college trying to figure themselves out, find themselves. Like
Undecided.
You're undecided. Like, you're still a kid, you know? Like, not a lot of people knew. Like, I knew since I was, like, 14 exactly what I wanted to do.
There's people who are almost retired now who still don't know what they want to be when they grow up.
Oh, exactly. So I had that advantage going in. I didn't get, as far as filmmaking, I kind of wish I would have gotten a little bit more. I got a lot of live TV experience, so that was really cool. William Patterson is actually like a pretty recognized college like around the country as far as their communications program. They have a pretty big communications program. They're big on communications, music. They have a huge music program. I mean, a lot of international students we had came just for the music program. And nursing, they're really big on nursing too. It's probably why I dated 2 of them in college. Mm-hmm. It was a good experience. Filmmaking wise, I used like actual film, like 16 millimeter film. So just sitting there and like physically, like when I say editing, like chopping up and taping up these scenes.
Old
like,
school.
Old school, yeah. And like splicing your scenes together. So it was very different, you know. You were in like one of my film projects, me, you, Brian, and Martin, that we shot in my parents' garage one night.
What was that? I don't remember this at all.
It was one thing, like, you were destroying, like, Martin's bike.
Oh, yeah! I remember that. Yeah.
Then you got revenge, like, in the basement or something.
You have to forgive me because after high school, it was hard to keep track, just like your girlfriends, of your schools. Because you were in Florida, NYU, William Patterson. You were just bouncing around all over the place for a while.
It wasn't until I went to Florida, which I actually did a TV class. Like freshman year, you just do your prerequisites and whatever. Definitely did my fair share partying once I got into college.
You?
No way.
Every time I try to get together with you, it's either a birthday, some sort of party. It's always something going on.
Jesus, like now it's like I fucking feel like I have a wedding or a bachelor party like every other weekend.
That's because for anybody who hasn't spent any time with Rodney, everybody loves Rod. We would go to the most far-off, random locations, and you would run into people you know. Even when you were picking up a couch from my house the other year.
Oh, my God, yes! Yes! That was insane. That was insane.
What about in 2001? Do you remember what we did July 27th of 2001?
Was that when we saw Planet of the Apes?
No. That's when we did the JPW Tough Enough tryout.
Oh, shit.
Believe it or not.
Wow, yeah.
Tell us about that. What was your mentality going into that?
I was doing it for the experience. Eric was telling me, and I think, like, kind of watching Tough Enough was the first time you got to, like, see a wrestling training.
How they actually do it.
How they, you know, bumps and, like, their stories. It actually kind of intrigued me a little bit. I'm like, this would seem, like, pretty cool. Like, you really got to see these people paying their dues. I didn't have the mentality that, like, I was, you know, going to be the one picked. But I was like, you know, let me try. If it works out, we'll go from there. The worst part for me was running the ropes. Like, I still tell people from this day when they talk about wrestling, oh, it's fake. But I'm like, yeah, but, you know, it's scripted, whatever. So it's everything else on TV. And I tell them about the story about how running the ropes and, like, you know, taking the bumps didn't hurt me that much. It's definitely a lot to not break your elbows because you have to really, like, flat back to the point where you have to do it all the time. But running the ropes, my ribs were sore for the next, like, 3 days.
Yeah, do you tell people, yeah, we ran across a cable covered in a garden hose. How do you think that felt?
Yeah, I was just amazed by how much pain I was just from that, too. Like, wrestling in high school was, like, one of the toughest things I did because I think it's, like, one of the hardest sports. But that was equally as brutal.
You got into that because of Bret Hart and British Bulldog, correct?
Yeah, because that's when I started, like, I think 8th grade, I started, like lifting weights in my room, and what I would do is, like, I'd play, like, a UFC event that I'd read from Blockbuster, or, like, a pay-per-view or something.
I would do the same thing when we had the gym in the basement, and I'd be lifting. I'd always put on wrestling.
Yeah, put on wrestling. Something that I knew
fighting,
had, like,
yeah.
You know, like, great, like, physical, technical matchup, like SummerSlam 92.
Brett and Owen.
Yeah. Do, like, sit-ups and use the curl bar and stuff like that. And I think after... Because I was never really into amateur wrestling before that as much as I was into pro wrestling. I vaguely remember seeing, like, 96 Olympics and, like, highlights of, like, Kurt Angle winning. So, like, when he went to ECW, like, I already kind of knew who he was. Mm-hmm. But I really just had like no interest. I don't know, something just hit me. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try wrestling. 'Cause I vaguely remember in 8th grade, like them giving us like sheets, kind of picking like, sports that we would like to try. Like, they kind of bucketed by season. Originally, I was gonna do cross country because I did track 8th grade, and I was like did pretty well. And it's funny too because in the beginning they asked us if we wanted to do short distance and long distance, and I did track, from like 4th grade to like 6th or 7th grade, kind of after school. And I also did the sprints too. And that year is like right around the time, it was like after WrestleMania 12. So like you seen those Iron Man vignettes. I was like, I'm going to do long distance because those vignettes like made you want to train more. Mm-hmm. And I did pretty well. And I was going to do cross country. And I didn't realize probably until like August that like fall sports start before school started. I was like, fuck that. I was like, no, like, no. Like, first of all, like, both my parents worked, so like, how the hell would I get there? Watching Brett and Bulldog, and even Warrior and Savage, which was like a really good match too, made me want to like, you know what? I'm gonna try wrestling.
What do you think about maybe any smart marks listening to this saying, Ultimate Warrior, the worst worker ever, got you into amateur wrestling?
It was definitely Brett Bulldog though. Like seeing that match and like how technical it was and like the pace they kept up, and say what you want to say even about like Warrior's work rate. Like you do that profession and go like a good 30 minutes at like that pace and like taking these bumps and like it choreographing like this contest. You need some sort of athleticism for it. Say what you want to say about his technical skills. He was no Kurt Angle. He was no Bryan Danielson.
Well, that's not what he was. He didn't need to be.
He didn't need to be. He was a performer, and he got a fucking great reaction.
Besides, these people saying that, how many of them have done an athletic thing in their lives?
Yeah, right?
But you wrestled all through high school, right?
Yeah.
Not into college?
Not into college, no. I think I was pretty burnt out senior year. It's kind of something I still think about this day. Like, how senior year, I really could have, like, done a little bit more to kind of, like, prove myself. I only had like a handful of like varsity matches, but I think I was just so tired of like the schedule, because you would start the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, and you'd practice that Friday, Saturday, and those are the worst. Like you think like they'd ease you into it, like those like they fucking kill you like right away. Having practice all throughout like Christmas break and going through Christmas Eve and everything else, I think by senior year I was just burnt. I just didn't have like that athletic desire anymore. I think I was like focused on like doing like the documentary project that I did senior year, and like I had a girl at the time and I'd rather spend time with her. I was just over it. I was going to wrestling literally in like cargo shorts and a belt. Yeah, I remember my coach asking me if I wanted to wrestle this kid Jeff off for 171, and I was like, no, I'm good. And he looked at me and was like, are you sure this is like for like the final like match or whatever? And I was like, no, like I just didn't want to do it. And going into college, I'm like, well, I'm not going to make the Olympics. I don't want to be a coach. And I just knew that like collegiate wrestling is a lot more serious. Like
right.
It's not like you're training from like November to like February or
it's hardcore.
March or whatever. It's all year round.
Right.
Talking to like guys now, like I talked to this guy, I think he wrestled for Ohio State or Iowa, one of those like D1 top schools, and like everyone in the wrestling team was like a state champ or a runner-up or like third place and stuff. And like these guys like started when they're like 5 years old, especially like from the Midwest. Like you're going against these farm boys, like these good old boys like don't play, bro.
Like the Brocks.
Yeah, like the Brocks, like the Dan Severns, like the Matt Hughes, like Johnny Hendricks. Like those are the people you're going against. Yeah, like there are some exceptions, like Jordan Burroughs is from New Jersey, but like he, went to college.
Phil Davis at Penn State.
Nebraska. Yeah. You don't see like a lot of people in our area really, really exceed, except for like Damian Hahn, who was a ridiculous wrestler in high school. But he's someone who started when he was like very young. Mm-hmm. Like if I started in middle school, it probably would have been a different story. And I actually thought about it 8th grade. I think that's what kind of brought my attention into like, what wrestling was.
Well, you said you regret, in a sense, not continuing. Is that what led you back into grappling?
Yeah, it did. It did. Once I started working out in college and like started like building some muscle and like building a lot of strength, part of me was like, man, like what if like I was like this size like during wrestling? Because in wrestling, the story was like I was always out muscled. Like these guys were way stronger than me, especially like 160 and 171. Because I was like a stick. I was like same size I am now, like 6 foot, but like
Right.
freshman year I was like 135 pounds, and by senior year I think I was up to like 160. But I have to weigh in at 160 and maybe wrestle 171. I did go out like on a winning note, the JV like district championships, so, like which was really cool. I think I just wanted to leave it at that.
Go out on a high note.
Go out on a high note, but at the same time, I think I could have been a bigger asset to the team. I wanted to, but I just didn't have it in me anymore. I think I was just, these practices, like, every day, Monday through Saturday, just like, burned you out. Going to other schools and like, having meets during the week. It was just a lot.
And you train right now at Ronin Athletics still?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you just got, was it this year, your blue belt?
No, I got my purple belt.
Excuse me.
I got my purple belt in December, right before Christmas.
You got your blue belt years ago.
Yeah.
But is that where you started grappling again years ago?
Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking on the way here, like what, got me into, going back. I think it was watching Ultimate Fighter Season 5. Something about that season, maybe watching like how good Nate Diaz was at like Jiu-Jitsu and stuff. And
Connor found that out a few months ago.
yeah. And at this time, I was like probably like almost a year into working at Viacom and stuff. So I was like in the city every day, and that's when like UFC really started like hit its stride as far as like mainstream.
Right.
Like that's when really like the Tito, Chuck Liddell boom.
Yeah, like the post Griffin Bonner rush.
Yep. Yep. And then I was like, started getting that like competitive edge again.
Eye of the tiger.
I started getting that competitive like bug. That's when they're really like starting to come out with like the countdown shows and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I kind of want to like train again, because I thought with like my wrestling background, it could really help me out.
Well, we've seen in MMA that if you have a wrestling base, and I've grappled with a few people who have wrestled too, and they grind on you, and that is so hard to overcome.
I didn't realize until people tell me, like, as a wrestler, you have a really good base.
Yeah.
So it's hard for people to sweep you. Like, it's hard for people to get to you. And you really kind of incorporate it, like, into your, like, sweeps and everything. And worst comes to worst, it's like pick at the guy's ankle and, like, take him down and, grind him from there.
Yeah, because, like, I'm good with submissions. But if you can't even get this guy off your chest, I can't even lock it on.
Yeah. Actually, the first place I went to was the Hensel Gracie School. I did one class there, and it was just me, one other kid, and one of the instructors, kind of doing like a small like private lesson.
Sure. Trial.
And yeah, it was cool there.
Was it GSP?
Yeah. But once it told me the price, I was like, it was like 200 something a month, like for the first month, and then you have to go through this blue belt program, and if like you miss a class, you have to make it up, and I'm like, this sounds like the military. So then, through a Google search, I found Ronin. I remember rolling like the first day there. I didn't know what I was doing, but like one of the guys I rolled with, he was like, man, like you have like a good base. Having the feeling of like wrestling with someone again, like live wrestling.
The physicality.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, this is great. And then I went to kickboxing at that same school a few days later, signed up, and then that was it.
Well, what was it, a couple years ago now already? You had neck surgery.
Yeah, it was almost 3 years ago. I trained for 6 months, pretty much, right? Then I decided to go to New York Film Academy, right? Just to like kind of like learn more about like filmmaking. So at that time, I still wanted to be in production, so I thought that'd really help my story.
Sharpen your skills.
Sharpen my skills into the digital world. So I had to stop training, but before that, I did my first Grappler's Quest, and I won. Like I remember going in there like thinking like, man, like no way someone's gonna take me down and stuff. So I got first place, which was like really awesome. No one scored a point against me. I think I was a week into film school, so I only trained like once that week. I didn't go back into training until 2010. So it was about like 3 years later. I think it was President's Day of 2013. I didn't even touch anyone yet, right? Like I had the day off and went into training, went to like the Monday no-gi class. As soon as I walked on the mat, I started feeling neck pain before I even went to stretch. And I thought it was weird. I'm like, oh, I'll fight through it. So I finished practice or whatever, went home, iced my neck, And the next day, it was still hurting. I was like, oof, like this is weird. I went to the doctor to see if I could get like Vicodin or something, like maybe that'll numb the pain. She gave me scripts, and I was still feeling the pain. And that's when I knew like something was like seriously wrong. And then I started going to like chiropractors, and literally it was like I felt like a science experiment, because I was like, they were sending me this for an X-ray and this person for like a chiropractor. And once I took X-rays, it was pretty scary, because I was 30, and after the X-rays, 2 separate doctors who have no correlation with each other told me that I like had the neck of like a 60-year-old man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it the discs that were all
It was the
degenerated?
disc, and like the spine like in my neck was like slanted.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was like curved in a way that it shouldn't have been curved. It wasn't one incident that did it. I think it was just just years of like wear and tear and grappling, like wrestling and like
neck bridges,
collar ties and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. We didn't do so many neck bridges in grappling, but I think it was just every time you roll with someone, like especially me, because I was like one of the bigger guys, so like everyone would like grab under your neck and like pull you into the guard and like shit like that.
Well, that's the thing. When you are a wrestler, you need to know how to defend submission attempts, because as soon as you shoot in, you're setting yourself up for a guillotine right there.
Yeah.
And a lot of these pro wrestlers, they do these nose to the mat neck bridges. I don't understand that. Like I can do a neck bridge fine, but I'm not putting my nose to the mat. That's just not a comfortable angle to any degree, especially for half an hour or whatever they want.
Jesus Christ. I remember going to a few doctors and then like really having to think about what to do. And I had surgery on my C5 through 7, so I had 2 herniated discs in my neck, and they were pinching a nerve, which was causing the pain.
Right.
I didn't have numbness in my arm, but I felt the pain, I guess, down to like my elbow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was bad. Like the only time I wasn't in pain was when I was asleep, like standing up, laying down. I probably had to average like 3 or 4 pills a day just to get through the day. Like couldn't do anything athletic wise.
That's
like,
modern medicine. They always want you hooked on something.
Because I didn't want to stop training. I was like, oh, why don't you just like go to the gym or something? I'm like, that fucking gets boring after a while.
It's not the same thing at all.
That's why. Even like the couple years in between my training, I did like put on like more size. Not to toot my own horn, but like it'll be hard for me to like even like put on shirts in the morning.
I remember you were beefy.
Yeah.
When you were telling me you were like 200 whatever pounds, I was like, what?
After around surgery, I got heavy. I was like 220.
Yeah.
That was
you mean you
crazy.
weigh as much as Shawn Michaels?
yeah. But so I had neck surgery on July 1st that year, and I was out of work for 3.5 weeks. It wasn't a bad time off, to have 3 weeks off in the summer and watch Homeland, and I got to see you on my birthday that year, so that was cool going out. But
I remember the stitches in your neck.
Yeah, I still have them, like right here.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in the hospital for like 3 days. My surgeon was awesome. Like she was very straight up to the point, and I just picked her just from like going to like my insurance and be like, oh, all right, this person, I'll just pick her. But she really knew what she was doing. Like it seemed like just procedure to her. It was weird being in the hospital because you'll be laying there and all of a sudden you have a bunch of lab coats come into you. They know your story, they know everything about you, and they're asking, are you okay? These questions, and then you'll have like these 12-year-old kids come in here asking if you need anything, and like, where do these people come? Yeah, like I don't know if they're volunteers or what, but I remember like these 2 kids, there's a boy and girl. I guess they're volunteers. They're like, are you okay? Like, do you need anything? And then you have someone else come take your food or someone else bring you your food. A different person cleaning it up.
Was this Cedars-Sinai?
This is Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai.
Yeah, Mount Sinai in Upper Manhattan. Mm-hmm. It was quite a journey.
But you started grappling how soon after that again?
A little less than a year.
And how did it feel? Like a new man or
I had to
baby
ease
steps?
into it.
Yeah.
I probably started going back to the gym, I want to say that December or January. I eased into it. Like what I'd do is I'd come in on Fridays and just like hit the pads, do a little bit of kickboxing just to get my body used to like that kind of motion again. You're putting the body through a lot more than normal weightlifting. After that, I started, maybe like March, I started easing into grappling. Everyone was like really cautious on my neck, so I think I might have rolled, but like very, very light. And then eventually, like, started going a little bit harder, The first time I was a little bit sore. I don't remember really having any scares. Sore, and then and then I felt better, and then I started going full pace.
I still talk to you, and it's like, oh, yeah, I might compete, I might do this, but you've done like Naga and Grappler's Quest and all these different divisions, and you've placed everywhere you could possibly place, and you just got gold recently.
Yeah, I got gold at Naga in the intermediate division, so that was cool. So next time I compete at Naga, now that I'm purple, now that I won the intermediate, I'll be able to compete in the expert division, and I want that gold belt. That's the one thing I do want to work for.
So you're going to grapple and compete for the foreseeable future.
I could see myself competing like well into my 40s. One thing I want to do is like the Pan Ams are this year, and I missed the cutoff last year. So winning the Pan Ams and getting the Naga gold belt are like two of my goals that I want to hit.
We ever going to see the Grappling Kings? Real quick, tell us what happened with that.
On my break in training, I was filming a documentary about grappling because a lot of people know what it is, but they just don't know the term. Grappling is everywhere, you know, like people grappling just like playing around. Like every street fight ends up in grappling on the ground. So I really just wanted to make like a really fun, awesome documentary, kind of educating people on grappling. And I got to meet like a lot of cool people. I got to interview Gina Carano. I got a media pass when they did the press conference at the Garden for the big Gina Carano and Cyborg main event fight. So that was cool. And Gina Carano, she messed up my last name because I asked her if she could say, "Thank you, Rodney Leconte Films," or whatever. And she kept saying, "Wait, Rodney Leconte? Leconte?"
Yeah, not Leconte.
Yeah.
Even the GPS on the way here is like, Leconte, whatever the hell it said.
But I was in a good place with that, you know, interviewing a lot of media journalists and everything. I was about 10 minutes in, and something happened with my computer, like, crashed. Something happened with like the disc, and I didn't lose the footage, but I lost everything I worked for at that point. I lost like a lot of stuff in that computer, and it just really put me in a down place. By the time I was like up and running again, it was a few months after, and I just lost that edge again to really like go back to it. I'm not saying it's completely dead. I still have everything. I still have the outline. I have all the footage. Guess we'll see what happens.
Well, if you'd just gotten a Mac, like I told you, we might be. But hey, you didn't listen. And people asked me at the time, like, "Where's Grappling Kings?" I'm like, "You have to ask Rodney." Well, now you know.
Yep. Hey, I mean, I gave them the Roundtable documentary, so maybe they'll be happy.
Mac! I've used Macs for everything. For the Wrestling Roundtable, for this. If Rodney had just gotten a Mac like I had suggested, we might be enjoying the Grappling Kings today. Hopefully, maybe one day we will in the future, but Rodney will definitely be back in the future also. We haven't even gotten to MMA, so many other things that we wanted to talk about. But in the meantime, you can follow Rodney on Twitter at RodneyR14. Next week, I will have a few words with the former WWF and WCW ring announcer and author, Gary Michael Capetta. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and SoundCloud. Follow on Twitter at A Few Words with ES, and give us a like on Facebook. Once again, appreciate all the support. If you want to send feedback or have a question, afwpod@gmail.com. I want to thank George Ott for our theme this week, and the song you are listening to now is We Are Simple. This track and Starting Somewhere from last week are both from Lawrence Haber's album Anxiety Log, available on iTunes, Spotify, CD Baby, Amazon, and Google Play. You can follow him on Instagram at Lawrence Haber Music. And remember, you can't spell America without Eric.
And remember, let the excitement blow you away.